Hey folks, my name is Dave. Welcome to our shop here at NTD Racing. Behind me is our 1978 Jeep J10 Desert Race Truck. We just got done racing in Vegas to Reno a couple months ago. We raced the Baja 1000 last year, and this year, in a couple weeks, we're going to be racing the Baja 1000 again. We're going to take all those lessons that we learned at the Baja 1000, and today on this video, we are building a GPS mounting system using Flyboy's pivot mount. And what we're going to do is close that space in between the pivot mounts and the chassis of the vehicle with this build. That'll allow us to maximize the information to the navigator and the driver and give us the best chances of finishing the Baja 1000. Before we get to that, there's a lot of cool content that is coming up before we get to the Baja 1000 in a couple weeks. So I will ask you to hit the like and the subscribe button below. Leave a comment, maybe ring the bell for notification of future episodes. And with that, let's go ahead and look at the problem and get to this build. All right, here's the stuff that we use in the truck. We use the Gaia software, and it's been working really well for us. And we like to use two GPSs, and now we're going to try to put these two side by side. We run one of the GPSs in 1 inch equals 1,000 feet, and the other GPS in 1 inch equals about 200 feet. That allows us to give a long range view of what's coming up, and then a short range, more detailed view of what's going on in the race, and we can manipulate all those things also. So I'm going to build a mount for these two GPSs, and what I have is this piece of cardboard here, which I cut out and I put into the truck. These will be the mounts that we're going to be using. These are the pivot mounts that you can find on flyboys.com, and one will go here and one will go right over here, separated by about 7 3/4 inches, and that'll give us about a ½ inch in between both of the GPSs. And you can see is that once those things that we want to put the GPSs in there, our iPads, these things slide in and they lock into place. They become very rigid. They're not going to go anywhere. These mounts are also really cool because this is all aluminum that's welded in there. And then this piece right here is a plastic piece, which is really durable, and we do have extras of those in case we break one of those. I've never seen one of these break in thousands of hours of use in aircraft. Another thing we need to think about is how we're going to get all the power to the iPads and the other items we have. So we have a couple USBs in the truck, but we're going to add this thing in. I found it on Amazon. I'll put a link in the description and let you know how it ends up working. But it basically splits it up into about 5 different USBs and then plus a USB-C, which usually charges things a little bit more quickly. So not only do we have to power up the two iPads, but we're also going to be using the Bad Elf, which is going to give us a tighter GPS signal to the iPads. And then we also have our Garmin, which we're going to use not only for a backup to the Bad Elf and the GPS, but also for emergency signaling or any kind of text messaging we have to use anytime that we're outside cellular coverage, because this does have satellite communication. Let's go ahead and get to the fabrication of this mount and start cutting the 1½ inch square tubes to make the mount for this thing. So I get onto Fusion 360 to design in CAD some of the panels that we're going to use on this design, and I'll be cutting on the Langmuir Systems Crossfire Pro. If you're interested in how I do the CAD, I usually put that in the very end so you can watch it in full length. So this is the Langmuir Systems Crossfire Pro, and I use this table in a lot of my videos, and I just recently added to my shop the Crossfire XR, which we'll be building our next truck with. And so there'll be a lot of cool content coming out of that. If you think you'd like one of these for your shop, you can check out in our link below or go to www.ntdracing.com, and there's a link there that'll give you a discount on the Crossfire Pro, and in the future you'll probably get a discount also on the XR. Check it out. Okay, here's a look at how all this stuff's going together. Here's that base plate we just cut. This bottom bar goes across the bottom, and then these two bars are on the sides, and this one across the top to make the rectangle. And I'll put some caps. I'm going to 3D print for the tops of those. These are the stiffeners that are going to go in here, and they're also going to create a space in here that I can enclose and make that dust proof. I'm putting little spacers just to raise the mounts just a little bit higher. Here are the ball mounts for the pivot cases. Inside of this little space here is going to be enclosed, will be where all of the USBs will connect. Here goes the top plate, which will bolt down and sandwich in there with the bottom plate, and then here is the dust cover that goes over everything. And now the iPads will basically sit side by side on top of there. All right, it's assembled. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. For the most part, it is done. I got the wiring set up in there. You see that there is power going to both of the iPads right now, and that's just coming in for that one wire. And there's still another 4 ports in there for other things that we'll be using, like our Garmin GPS, our Bad Elf, and those kinds of things. The only other thing I see here that I'm going to change is I'm going to go ahead and go inside here, and these spacers that I cut, I'm going to add one more to the bottom of each one of the iPads, because as you can see underneath here, there's a little bit of interference with these screws right here. Probably a little bit problem with screw selection, but I can fix that, and I can also clear up some of the interference with our charging ports there just by adding an extra spacer in there. Besides that, I think these plugs look pretty awesome. I'll be gluing the GoPro mount on top of there later on tonight. We'll get this thing into the truck, and let's go ahead and see how it looks and works in there. All right, welcome to the navigator seat of Honcho. I had somebody ask me to give a quick tour of what we had in the truck, so here you go. This is our Edge CTS for all of our engine instruments. I'm going to turn that off right now because it makes that loud buzzing noise. We have a backup camera over here. We found that we did back up a couple times and it was difficult to do with a reduced visibility, so we added a backup camera to the back of the truck. Over here we have a iPad mini for the driver on one of the pivot mounts from Flyboys. And you can see I'm running a split screen. I've got GPS with the Gaia GPS on the left, and I'm running just a really simple speedometer on the right side for the driver. I did put tap up, tap down in the steering wheel, and I have a video coming out for that. Besides that, center race seats. This is our Cyclone, which blows cold, clean air into our helmets. We're running an ICOM radio up here off the PCI race radios, and that thing works amazing. This is where the Stella is going to go, and we relocated that so it's really easy to see for everybody. As far as communication, we do have this Garmin GPS also, which gives us a backup GPS signal, but also more importantly allows us to text over satellite. And that'll come right up over the GPSs or right over the iPads for texting. Running an GoPro, and then behind the iPads we also have the Bad Elf, which gives us that really tight signal which we're sending to all the GPSs so that we have really good positional accuracy. As far as how this thing works now, we got the new mount here in the truck. You can see it is really rigid. You could basically almost tow the truck by this thing. And to get everything in here, you just take your iPad in the pivot mount, this pivot case here from Flyboys, and you slide it in here. You can hear it click into place. Line those two things up, and I got some charge cords you can plug it in on the bottom. If I can get that thing plugged in, and boom, now we're charging these things up, and they're in there. And this is how we're going to run this thing during the race. This one over here will be running about 1 inch equals about 1,000 feet, and you'll see up here, here's Ojos. We're going to be pre-running this tomorrow. And then over here is 1 inch equals about 200 feet, and it gives you a little bit better positional awareness as where you are. You can zoom in, it's really nice. But these things are totally in here solid. How well are these things mounted in here, and how solid is this pivot mount case? Check this out.
Motor's holding steady at 174.
Oh, it's looking really good.
All right, I hope you like that footage of testing Honcho. It's running amazing. And I think we're ready for the Baja 1000. In the next couple of weeks, I got some really good footage coming out. Tomorrow, we're heading down to Ensenada. We're gonna be doing some pre-running, and I'm gonna show you how we put the Gaia software to work in pre-running, logging some information, and prepare our maps for the Baja 1000. A lot of other great content you're not gonna wanna miss also. I'm gonna show you how we put sport shifting on the 6L90 in the truck, how we're setting up our chase trucks and preparing everything, and then getting to the race. We'll have a lot of good footage for that you won't want to miss. Please consider hitting the like and subscribe, leaving a comment, and also hitting the bell for notification for future episodes, especially as we're getting ready for this race. And I'll see you in the next couple days. Take care of yourself. Okay, this is Fusion 360. I use this for a lot of my designing, especially when I'm going to plasma cut. So let's get started on this plate that we're going to use to mount the pivot case mounts for the GPSs or for the iPads. So I start by clicking sketch, and then I click on the X and Y axis. That's because that's the axis the Crossfire Pro or the Crossfire XR cut on. I generally like to pick the center rectangle over here and select the 0X and 0Y origins, and that helps me kind of design this thing and gives me something to take my measurements off of later on. This thing is going to be 16 inches by 11 inches. And then the distance between the two iPads is going to be 7 3/4 inches. So I'm going to hit the hotkey L. I'm going to select this button over here to turn on construction lines, and I'm just going to draw a line at 7 3/4 of an inch. Now I want that to be centered on basically the center of that origin there. So I'm going to select midpoint, select the line, and then also the origin, and that's going to center up that line right there. To make the mounts, I'm only going to make one. So what I also want to do is, since I got lines going on here, I'm going to make a line right down the center, which I'll use for mirroring something later on. You have to have some kind of a line to make that happen. And then let's go ahead and make the holes for the mounts. So again, I'm going to pick this center rectangle starting from here, and then the mount that I'm making is 1.2 inches between the holes in the bottom, and then it's vertically 1.5 inches. And then I'm going to turn off construction lines to make the holes, because I actually want them to cut these things. So I'm going to hit hotkey C, that brings up my circle, and 0.2 inches for the circle. The bolts that I'm using are 0.18. I'm just going to shoot for going a little bit over. I find going a couple thousandths over makes it such that I don't have to re-drill out those holes for these mounts there. Now that I got those, I just basically want to mirror the same thing on the other side over here. So I'm going to select mirror, and it says what objects do you want to mirror? Well, I want to mirror that object. Basically the circles that I just made, I want those to be repeated, and if they don't turn blue, they're not going to mirror. And it also will tell you how many objects you're mirroring. It says 6. I don't want to mirror 6. I want to actually mirror 4. So sometimes I find you got to zoom in and select the correct objects, and then just go over here and confirm. Yep, I want to mirror 4 objects, and I want them to be mirrored about this line over here. And when I select that line, there goes those holes over there. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to hit OK. Now I got my part. I want to soften these edges up over here, so I'm going to go ahead and select this radius and select the corner, 2 lines that make up the corner I want to make. I want to make that a 1/4 inch radius. And I just made an error right there. I really want those to be on all the corners. So as I select these corners, I'm going to say 0.25, and if I don't touch anything, I go over here and I select all the other corners, it'll hold that 0.25 all the way around. So I gave myself an extra couple steps there. From there, I hit the hotkey E for the extrusion. I always like to kind of turn it over to the side so I can see what I'm extruding. And I'm going to make this a 0.09 extrusion for the metal that I'm using, and there you go. There is the part that we're going to be cutting on the plasma table.